All right, welcome back. I'm excited to introduce our next panel, the state of AI for personalized marketing. Please join me in welcoming our panelists to the virtual stage. And I'll hand it over to our moderator, Devashish.
Thank you, appreciate that. Hi everyone, my name is Devashish Saxena. I'll do a quick introduction. I'll invite my fellow panelists to do the same. So like I said, my name is Devashish. I am Vice President and Chief Digital Officer at PPG Industries. PPG is a paint and coatings company, global company, about $15–16 billion. We essentially, our CEO says it best when he tries to understand what we do. His quote is, if it moves, we coat it. If it doesn't move, we code it. So we code it is the business we're in. Nice to meet everyone. I look forward to having a fun time here. Per, why don't you go next? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your company, and maybe your role.
Great, thanks for having me. So Per Nyberg, I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Stradigi AI. So we are a Montreal-based AI platform company, really focused on putting the capabilities of machine learning in the hands of everyday business users. So I've been with the company about a couple of years now, and before that, an extensive history in high performance computing, also in AI and a number of other verticals.
Oh, nice to meet you, Per. Ashish.
Yeah, thanks, Devashish, and nice to meet you, Per, as well. Really excited for this conversation today, and I'm really excited to be a part of this panel. So yeah, my name is Ashish Agarwal. I'm VP and Head of Marketing at Humana, specifically on a line of business, what we call our clinical and pharmacy solutions. So which really entails driving, our member engagement. So at Humana, just give you a little bit of context, Humana is a Fortune 100 healthcare innovator. So we are in the business of providing health insurance and then really engaging our members in, delivering care towards that whole person well-being. And specifically, my responsibility is driving member engagement in our different, we have a Humana pharmacy, we have digital healthcare products, we have well-being products. So really driving member engagement in those products towards better health outcomes and better business outcomes at the end of the day. Background-wise, before Humana, where I've been for the last 2 years, I spent a considerable amount of time in consumer financial services. So specifically from a marketing perspective, data, analytics, digital are some of the topics and areas close to my heart. And I really am passionate about leveraging them all towards unlocking business value and consumer value. And that's why my interest in this panel today.
Fantastic, great. Let's dive right in. I know we have a series of questions that will help guide our conversation. We will feel comfortable veering a little bit off topic if it needs to, if you're talking about something. So, the first question, as you and the audience can see, is really about the role of marketing, the role of AI, in marketing, and how you guys see that in your organizations. So I'll talk a little bit at the end, maybe how I see it. But maybe what would help, and maybe Ashish, let's start with you on this one. Talk a little bit about, you just talked about Humana as an organization, as a company, and the business unit that you're working in. Talk a little bit about the role of marketing in from a business sense, and then maybe you can give us a play on how you're seeing at least places where AI is helping you achieve what you're trying to do from a marketing perspective.
No, absolutely. That's a great place to start. So look, just taking a step back, my career has always been in, regulated industries. And I thought before I got into healthcare, I thought financial services was regulated, and you get into healthcare, you realize it's regulated at a whole different level for all the right reasons. And look, healthcare also, just as a category, is boring, right? I mean, you really don't find very many fun brands in healthcare. And then talk about health insurance, which is where Humana started. We are a health insurance provider and primarily in the Medicare Advantage space. So this is senior 65 plus. And then we do have also an employer group commercial business where we provide insurance plans for employers, small to medium sized employers. So when insurance as such, health insurance remains a very kind of boring product category. No one wakes up in the morning thinking about their health insurance provider, health insurance payer, and on top of that, it's a category which is also very intimidating. I mean, till today, even I don't fully understand my health insurance plan. And then payers like insurance, Humana realize that there is where the industry is going with the democratization of digital and just data. There is tons of leverage in really building that trust with the member and earning the permission space to not just be an episodic payer of claims, but really participate with the member along the consumer journey, around what we call the health journey. And that's where marketing's role comes in, to really build that deep relationship with the member, someone whom you acquired on one of the insurance plans, to really start interacting by having meaningful conversations and meaningful and relevant exchange of data around the consumer journey, to start understanding, what are Ashish's eating habits? What are my, wellness habits? Like how frequently do I exercise? How is my blood pressure tending? And ultimately being able to design benefits, design kind of the next intervention from Humana that is beneficial to me and that is kind of beneficial to Humana in delivering the right experience for me. So marketing's role is really designing the right experiences, right offerings. And one of the things I mentioned in my introduction was my team is responsible for helping members with the convenience of a mail order pharmacy. So instead of going to a retail pharmacy, there is actually data-based evidence to say, people who have who leverage mail order for Humana's mail order pharmacy, it leads to just better medication adherence and some of the better health outcomes, because you don't have to worry about going to a retail pharmacy to pick up your prescription. Now, specifically, how does AI come into all of this? Look, at the end of the day, I feel AI is actually not going to lead off. I think I forget what was the exact question, whether it's a death of marketing or it's a great marriage. I think AI is going to make marketing more intelligent. As you and I know, marketing has a science to it and an art to it. I think AI is going to even demystify that art. The value of art will still remain. The value of cognitive biases or how human brain responds to a certain color better than other, that will still remain. But AI will demystify art, and AI will be able to deal with large amounts of unstructured data, and to be able to still create some method in that kind of black box and help marketeers more efficiently and at scale execute to better outcomes. So that's my kind of view on AI, and I'm happy to give specific examples where I'm beginning to see some promise and success.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Maybe just a quick follow up, and Per, will go to you, get your perspective on the role of marketing and how you see that connect with AI. But Ashish, when you were talking, you're marketing to the member, as you said it, but is the decision to become an insurance customer for Humana, is that driven by the member, or is that largely driven in terms of where you're able to offer insurance plans in terms of companies? Is it a B2B or is it a B2 member? You see what I'm saying?
So Humana, Humana's large part of the business, about 80% of the business, comes from direct to consumer marketing. So actually going to consumers and getting them on our insurance plans. Then there is some that comes from B2B2C. So you are basically going to an employer. And once those people are members, then my group comes in and tries to engage with these members on these different care delivery assets we have.
Gotcha. Okay. Makes sense. Thanks. Per, over to you.
Yeah, look, that was a great sort of tangible example. And I guess there's a couple of aspects here. One is certainly that, we all know marketing has evolved dramatically over the last couple of decades, right? One, it used to be sort of more on the demand generation front. And as Ashish sort of described, it's marketing has a role to play sort of post-sale, if you will, as well, sort of members. And so that sort of notion around the lifetime of a client, right, before and after engagement. So I think that's one thing in terms of being able to map that journey, right? And the other piece over the last, again, 10, 15 years, 20 years, is just a degree of automation that's occurred in marketing, right? So it's kind of less and less around black art, more around automation, which with it came a lot of data. And sort of you put all these things together, and I think it's a very, very natural fit. From a business perspective, every single company, regardless of what industry they're in, they're trying to optimize, customer acquisition costs and then customer lifetime value, right? Both of those, like I said, speak very much to this journey. Both speak very much to data. And so I think there's a lot of approaches now using, AI, machine learning that lend themselves very, very well to be able to, kind of quantify that uncertainty that every business is trying to look for in optimizing those two things. So I think it's just continuing and sort of looking into the future now, and we're kind of in the future right away, even today, is this kind of very highly personalized experience, right? So it's not just looking at categories of individuals or regions or whatever it might be. It's really very highly personalized. So that just adds yet another layer of opportunity, complexity, data, all of which again lends itself very, very well towards machine learning. So I think it's just starting. This is the very exciting aspect of it.
Yeah, maybe Per, it would help. I know you mentioned in the introduction a little bit about the company and the product, you being an AI product company. Okay. Some color on what space from a marketing perspective, how the product or the platform that you have, what role or what are the key attributes of the product that you have in the marketing area, just so we have a little bit of understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So maybe a little bit of introduction. There's obviously a lot of talk about AI, right? This conference is an example, and just sort of the breadth of the individuals that are participating just shows the interest in AI. I think the reality out in industry is that although a lot of companies are piloting, exploring AI, there's actually not that many that have been very successful in deploying it. A good thing is certainly there has been a lot of success in the marketing space, and everything from, customer churn analysis through to, as I mentioned earlier, sort of very personalized marketing, be things like ad targeting, let's say, being able to map the journey of someone who comes onto your website or your social platforms. So there's a lot of ways that machine learning has really been already successful in this space. From our perspective, we do see, however, that one of the big challenges for people to be able to leverage machine learning has been this talent gap or this technology barrier, if you will. Today, most companies that are able to use machine learning, they've been able to do so because they've been able to, they've been the lucky few that have hired a lot of data scientists, highly specialized skills in machine learning. But the vast majority of the market out there, those skills don't exist in the marketing department, if you will, right? So they're often relying on off-the-shelf type products, and there's a lot of value that's being left on the table, or left in the data, I should say, that's not being taken advantage of. So that's really our focus is, how do we put our platform, Kepler, into the hands of, non-technical users? And we've been very successful in doing that. Web companies that do exactly as I described, very, again, personalized kind of journey mapping and ad targeting with people that, again, they don't have those machine learning skills. So we've been very happy in being able to put the capabilities into the hands of more people.
That's great. Thanks for that. I appreciate that. My quick perception to add, I think you guys shared some great ones. I feel like this is a continuation of the journey that we've been on in marketing, right? The old adage in marketing is, I spend all this money and half of it works, I just don't know which half. When we moved from a lot of traditional marketing to digital, that was a step in understanding attribution and accountability, performance. And I think what AI starts to do is allow us to be even smarter about some of those things. And we'll get into where AI can play a role. But just, the example that I think of is, when we started to become digital in our marketing, we started to think, how we can be smarter about segmentation and how we can create more targeted, even back in the early days of digital marketing, right? How do we create a more personalized, relevant, meaningful connection? And I, as you were just talking about, Per, we're still trying to do that, but now we have even more advanced techniques, it feels like, with what AI brings to the table to allow us to be even more effective in doing that, rather than relying on perhaps rudimentary analytics to try and drive that. Just the way that I've been looking at it. But maybe we can go to the next question. I think it leads right up, which is to really start to maybe think about, and some of it we started to throw out there, but Ashish, let's go back to you and specific to Humana. When you think about your marketing operations in general, what are some of the big opportunities that you see where AI is playing a role today? And maybe you can talk a little bit about also kind of what's working well there and what could be better.
Yeah, so look, I would say from a marketing perspective, and I think you hinted to it, Devashish, I think we're just getting started, right? Opportunities are really huge, and some of it is just capability and talent catching up. Some of it is just human imagination of identifying the use cases and where you can really start, unlocking value. I would say right now where we are focused and definitely seeing a lot of value is on a few fronts, and not necessarily just kind of from a marketing lens, because these days, as you all know, marketing is obviously, that's where you're acquiring customers, and then you are leveraging some of the marketing tactics and capabilities. You are engaging with the customer, but there's a close interrelationship and marriage with the service side of the operations equation as well, because that's where you're having a lot of real-time consumer interactions. So we are seeing opportunities. One, and I would say just frankly, how do you leverage AI to just predict the next best action? And I know next best action is almost like a cliche jargon these days. Everyone is talking about next best action. But even as you take baby steps towards it, whether it is in your service channel or whether it is in your kind of consumer journey, leveraging the data you have, how can you start getting smarter beyond just some of the, back in the day, we used to do propensity modeling? How can you make that a little bit more sophisticated and more personalized, more kind of segmented at scale? I think that's where we are seeing opportunities in AI. Definitely seeing at a little bit more advanced level opportunity in AI in choice of words. There are some of the platforms we have been working with where you can use AI to be smarter about your copywriting. Based on some of the experimentation data you have generated, you realize, what, AI can help me create a copy that resonates better with my target consumer versus, some of the first shot that you will take from a human judgment and talent perspective. Doesn't mean that humans can be replaced, but a machine based on your prior data can help you suggest something that's a great starting place to experiment and iterate. So those are some of the specific areas where we are seeing value, and it's the initial results that we are seeing are actually very promising, both in terms of the engagement, higher engagement that it leads to, and frankly, some of the efficiency gains.
Great. Thanks, Ashish. Per?
Yeah, Ashish had great examples there. I mean, I think to try and build on it a little bit, I think there's kind of three basic sort of categories or approaches you can look at this. I mean, certainly machine learning is being used to, I think, extend or deepen existing capabilities. More sophisticated A/B testing, as an example, right? So it's kind of making your current approaches better. I think the other one is like all organizations are trying to do is just kind of extend out and break the silos as well. So there's very natural fits, obviously, between marketing and sales and marketing and customer service, and again, speaking that customer journey, right? So I think that marketing has, in general, as a function, I think, an even more important role to play in modern organizations. But a lot of it is backed up by this understanding of the consumer, right? So again, I think that machine learning obviously plays a big role in that. And I guess that the third sort of category dimension is just, new and novel ways of interacting with buyers, with consumers in ways they didn't know before. And again, I think that, you look at the capabilities of machine learning to really understand these vast amounts of data. And as these, businesses gather more and more of it on their clients, there's new insights that are always gained, right? That's one of the actually exciting things about machine learning is most people tend to think of it often as, okay, it's automation, it's just going to automate what a human's doing today, or might be some new way of approaching of a problem. But the other one is really just providing better insights to the humans to come up with entirely new ways of doing things. And I think that it's the sum total of all of those things that we see this kind of constant evolution.
Yeah, no, and I think you're right. I mean, the simple way that I've sort of processed this, right, is at the end of the day, for like, if I think about in my own experience, we have lots of customers, we have lots of channels that we can use to reach them, and we have lots of things that we could say to them. Yeah. So that's the basic problem any market is trying to solve, right? It's who should I talk to, when should I talk to them, what channels should I use, and what should I say, right? Those are the kinds of things, and then do that in such a way that it creates the sort of the impact that we're trying to drive to, right? Whether it's the next step in the journey, loyalty to the brand, transaction, some action, whatever that is. So I always look at what is the role of machine learning that can help us. And so one specific example where we are starting to see, and somebody mentioned this already, right? You guys talked about churn. We're looking at, okay, well, we could talk to a lot of customers, and churn is sort of getting them at one end of that life cycle. But how can I identify growth customers? I mean, I don't know what the opposite of that is, but like the ones where we are underrepresented, right? So it feels like these customers, we are getting a very low share of wallet. They feel very similar to these other customers where we have a much higher share of wallet. So the growth opportunity is there. So what is it that we're capturing it here, but not capturing it there? And then we're using machine learning models to help us identify these, and then also help us give some understanding of things we could do to help grow this base and sort of mirror the performance that we're seeing here. Just an example of where we're really across that life cycle that I talked about, a specific example of where we're using it. But
if I can jump in there, I think the customer churn one is really interesting in that, most people think of the classic customer churn. It's like they're an existing customer, right? And you don't want to lose. Yeah. But we've worked with it was a financial services organization where they were trying to understand churn in sort of the let's call it the marketing end or the sales end, where people would apply for credits but then never follow through on it, right? So it was very expensive to find the client, convince them that they're going to get a credit card, take 3 steps, and then the client didn't take the final step, right? So there's ways to really think of churn in very different ways. And at the end of the day, it's just, predicting behavior based on characteristics. But that is a use case that we're seeing across the board.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, right? Because the hard churn definition, we call it hard churn sometimes, is you've lost the customer, right? They haven't transacted with you for a certain amount of time, and you can define what that is. But really what you want to catch are behaviors leading to that, right? That allow you to interject or reconnect at a much earlier basis based on some early indicators that could lead in that direction. So now what the example you gave, Per, is sort of on the other side of the, that's sort of like, churning while you're trying to acquire new customers. But the concept is still the same, right? How can you look at early indicators behaviorally that can trigger some sort of action, which is what Ashish was talking about.
Yeah.
But maybe if we go to the next question, I think it sort of builds on this one, and sort of maybe look at the opposite side, right? In either the areas that we talked about, or perhaps some of the others, which is why they're not big part of your AI in marketing portfolio. But where are some of the challenges that you guys are saying in the use of AI in marketing? And I know one that's going to come up, but let's see if it does. Ashish, you want to take us up again?
Yeah, I can take a stab at it. I feel, just based on what I'm seeing, my assessment is there are few from a challenge perspective. One is, I would say, a combination of talent and capability gap within marketing to really kind of, be where the science and the capabilities are, and really be able to bridge that gap without being intimidated. And both the sides have to kind of come somewhere in the middle, right? And maybe the subject matter experts kind of can speak in a way that they don't lose the marketeers, and the marketeers can become savvy enough to understand the kind of, the subject matter experts. So there is definitely something there. And then that also gets further complicated when there are, in some cases, maybe some just plain insecurities, right? Like I've talked to some of my fellow practitioners, and I've in my own experience, when you start saying, hey, AI can help us better copyright, people get insecure. Like, what does that mean? Are you saying that, machine can do a better job than I can do at writing? And that's just one example. And then also when you start taking AI into, some of the other aspects of the consumer journey, some of the service channels, some of those, insecurities start coming in. So that is one challenge I'm seeing. The other challenge is frankly just on data, quality of data. Because the use case is there, that everyone gets it, that what, if you can leverage AI here, you're bound to see better value because things are not super optimized right now. And maybe you have 60 to 70% of the data needs met with your current data infrastructure, but the last 20-30% are not there to take you to that last mile delivery. So those are the challenges specifically we are kind of just focused on right now, to be able to fully unleash the value of AI in certain use cases, and then say, what, let's invest more, let's do more of this, because this is a great way of unlocking value.
Great, thanks, Ashish. Per?
Yeah, so I wholeheartedly agree with Ashish on the skills gap. I mean, I think that look, this is kind of a constant evolution in terms of skills, but and I think this counts for pretty much every role in most companies, where you're starting to see people needing to become much more data knowledgeable, right? And it on the one hand, you absolutely do not want to lose a creativity. That ability to, again, quantify uncertainty and what have you, and use data, that is a skill, right? I think things have changed dramatically, though, just with marketing automation. So there's certainly roles in every company where that's pretty much all they do is look at the data, and those people are critical. But I think the power comes when you can connect both sides, if you will, that kind of creative and data side of it. The other one I also agree wholeheartedly is around data. And I guess there's a couple of aspects there. One is certainly that, I mean, look, you can't do machine learning without data. So that's kind of your starting point. And there's a lot of companies that have these silos. They have a ton of data. There's no question at all, but it's really not in any sort of a usable form. So they start in one place, which is absolutely what they should do, is get started. But then over time, they need to be thoughtful about how they can, kind of break down these silos into, let's say, the sales side or the customer service side, to really be able to do much more powerful, machine learning. The related to data as well, and this is one that we see, is that a lot of companies think they have the data, but they actually don't own it. And so it depends on the sectors that they're in, but there's kind of battle lines being drawn in a number of industries of, well, who owns the data, right? So if you are let's say, a concert, for example, and you want to do marketing to the concert goers, who actually owns the data? It's not the artist. Likely it's the organizer of the concert, right? And so then you have all the other, hierarchy of companies that are involved, and it's very unclear that aspect of data ownership. And until you have the data, you really can't do much about it. So I see that as well moving forward, in that organizations going to, well, they already do today, but increasingly, as they get hyper personalized and understanding segments of the population, consumers, whatever it might be, that starts to become the value, and it does get very closely guarded. So I think that's another space to really watch as things move forward.
Yeah, and you know, that ownership of data is obviously an important one, and it becomes, it's not something new. Like if you think about consumer brands that use retail channels to go to market, there was always that friction of, well, who owns that POS data, and retailers put some big walls around it, right? Yeah, no brand is ever going to get access to that, and so brands had to kind of work around that because they would love to know who bought my products, but they didn't know. So it's not a new thing. It's not a new thing. It's evolved, and its importance, I think, has gotten a lot more because, like you said, no ML without data. So the significance of that, I think, has tremendously grown, and its ability to sort of put bumps in your AI journey are a lot more significant. So yeah, I think that's obviously there. I wanted to touch also on the skills piece. It's interesting because what I heard from both of you, right? There's essentially a technical side of AI, right? The analysis and the model building and everything else, and there's almost a storytelling part. And the better you do this job, the more you are able to address the other challenge, which is the adoption. And I see some parallels in the early days of digital too, right? Because there's a lot of technologists that were talking, but true adoption and impact didn't happen until we could put almost a layer of storytelling that was sort of more business savvy. And you start speaking the language of the domain rather than the language of the model. And so there's, I am almost seeing in my experience and with what we're doing at PPG, we're building cross-functional squads that allows the data scientists and the data engineers and the deeply technical specialists and bring to them some, I know we're talking about marketing. We have an end-to-end view in the approach that we take, but bring that domain expertise, bring that product management mindset, and kind of mix that up, and we have found that sort of bringing those groups of individuals together allows us to create more breakthroughs because each one of those individuals is sort of learning from the other one. So just wanted to share that. Great. So let's go to the next slide. I think we're doing good on time, so we'll move on to the next question, which is just around sort of your operations, right? How do you set up your shop? And I think of this in terms of people, process, technology. I mean, I was starting to allude to it a little bit in what I was just describing. So here, maybe we'll start with you this time in terms of the companies and brands that you've worked with. What are you seeing on the ops side here?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think our approach to this is, and I'll kind of tie a few things together, is really about kind of making existing teams better, right? And that's really the focus of, from we're coming from with the platform, right? Put the power of machine learning, make it automated and easy to use that your existing teams can benefit from it. And so, when we engage with companies within the broad marketing department around kind of often, let's say, consumer behavior modeling, let's say, or, they're looking at that improving customer lifetime value or churn or ad personalization. Typically we need to work with those companies on the data side to begin with. But then after that, it's really about, giving them that tool where they can explore the data, learn and gain those insights that they need in order to be able to, better optimize whatever it is that they're doing. And we've seen really, really kind of fun results here where, you hear back from these marketing teams like, oh, wow, these are things we really didn't even know about our own consumers, right? But that's the power and the gain that you get from a tool like machine learning when it's coupled with someone who's a subject matter expert, right? And I think to your point, it's you know, when you put those teams together, you put the technology and the subject matter experts together, that's really what kind of sets up a team from an operational perspective to be able to leverage it. Certainly, again, starting with the data, though.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I feel a lot of times I find that the human or the consumer angle in those conversations is missing. Any AI-driven conversation very quickly becomes about the science or the model building or the technology. But at the end of the day, what's the consumer problem? How will consumer benefit? The human side, I think that tends to be missing. And that's where I meant, the marketeers, who tend to be a lot of times the stewards of the consumer at the table, need to be able to bring that point of view.
To the scientists, right? To the engineers. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit, Ashish, about how you look at ops to ensure that you're getting the biggest bang from the AI buck?
Yeah, so look, I mean, obviously, like most folks out there, Humana is on a journey here. We have an enterprise-wide, very committed, concerted kind of effort in investing strategically towards kind of leveraging data analytics, digital in our enterprise strategy. We have been, opportunistically trying both, opportunistically having vendor relationships, partnerships where it makes sense, where someone is bringing an expertise that either we don't have or it doesn't make sense for Humana to kind of, build that expertise ourselves. However, I do believe there is still a place for a minimum kind of, level of expertise to be in-house. And I say that because no one knows your customer better than you do. No one knows your own data and an internal kind of, organizational, political, cultural realities and challenges than you do. So I feel at the end of the day, organizations have to build and invest. If AI is something they are committed to, then you have to build, whether it is in your data teams, marketing teams, service teams, there has to be a certain minimum level of investment in the talent and capabilities and frankly goals. Just hiring a bunch of smart people is not enough. They also need to be given some really good objectives and goals and frankly some investment, appetite and decision rights. So that's where we are on our journey. We have some really smart partners and vendors whom we are partnering with on different use cases and problems, but also really rapidly investing in our own internal capabilities.
Yeah, and that sounds, sorry, Per, go ahead.
I was just going to add in, I think, again, I agree wholeheartedly with that. I mean, I think where organizations want to go, and again, this is not just marketing in the broader sense as well, is to be really, data centric, right? I think there's a lot of companies today that, they might be kind of data knowledgeable a little bit, data, but it's really about data centric, which means that, all the various functions of a business are driven around the data, right? I agree with that. And I think, that the more that your subject matter experts, it's not a matter of replacing them, right? I think that's one of the kind of unfortunate things that maybe a lot of people pick up around AI. There's somehow you have to replace your entire teams to use it. That's not true. Or you have to replace all your entire workforce. That's not true either. And you look at these companies that have this vast institutional knowledge, like a marketing team, you really just want to make them better, right? Just, take their knowledge, their subject matter expertise, put the tools in their hands and make them better. And it's an iterative thing. AI is like, it's a bit like an annuity. It's not a panacea on day one. You get better at doing it on day 2 and day 3 and onwards, right? So it absolutely is this kind of journey aspect to becoming much more data centric.
Yeah, and that's why that journey, I think, tying back to what we were talking about around challenges, that's where that adoption and that openness and that willingness to work with the algorithms comes in, right? Because if you don't, then it becomes a binary discussion. But you're absolutely right. It is a journey, and for most use cases, for most organizations, at least from my perspective, it is an augmentation. It's not a replacement, right? It's about how we make how do we use that data in a smarter way than what we were doing before. We were still using data, you applying these newer techniques and hopefully be even more effective. Great. So I think on the operations side, Ashish, a lot of the things that you mentioned, I think from my perspective are very similar. We are also doing the same, right? Trying to understand how we build our internal sort of capability, but then be smart about where we apply that capability, and be smart about where the problem's already been solved and I don't need to solve it again. So, kind of the build versus buy kind of decision. And then on the buy side, then use that lens to figure out who we should be partnering from. So very similar to what you guys described. Great, I think we're doing good on time. We have one final question and then we'll kind of take us off to the end. So future focused, where are we going? What's going to happen, Perry? You probably have a lot of visibility here. What are your thoughts?
Look, I think it's very much as we were describing earlier about just, increasingly personalized experience. But I think obviously this kind of notion of omni-channel, it's across a number of channels, touching your customers, wherever they might be in the market at different points in time by persona, and really being able to have that hyper personalization and quantification from a marketing perspective. So I think there's kind of that journey relationship aspect all the way through that very operational aspect of it as well. And I think it's just starting. I think it's really amazing what's happened over the last few years, and they're just dipping their toes in this.
Yeah, great. Ashish?
Yeah, no, I agree. I believe the future is super exciting, both the possibilities that AI holds for marketing, the value it will unlock for the business, but frankly for marketers. I mean, if you think about 5 years back or 10 years back, and Devashish, I think you gave the example of digital, when digital marketing was a thing. It was digital marketing, and then there was one minus digital marketing, everything else we did. Now, life is digital. I mean, this is example of our lives right now during COVID, and this is here to stay. So similarly, I believe AI will be a part of the standard marketers toolkit, and analytics would just hit a different level, and there will be use cases where AI level or AI use cases will be activated, and there will still be a time and place for a lot of descriptive and predictive analytics that you do. So I think AI marketing will just become more sophisticated to really activate the hyper personalized experiences and relevant experiences that we haven't all gotten used to thanks to the small retailer in Seattle. And some of the other
I wonder as a result, because theoretically, Ashish, all of that should drive a lot more effectiveness in the marketing campaigns. So theoretically, we should be able to reduce our marketing spend and still generate the same impact.
No, absolutely, you're right. I mean, I think just when with better analytics and digital technologies, CFOs were putting pressure on CMOs for reduced marketing investment, saying, "Get me more."
Yeah.
Now it's going to be like, do even more magic, right? Because you have all these big money going into AI, which will also be viewed as marketing investment.
Yeah,
exactly. Per, were you going to say something on that?
No, I was just going to add in that I was just trying to think who that small vendor in Seattle might be, but yeah. No, but you're 100% right. I mean, I think, along those lines, maybe just add one thing. They were a small vendor once upon a time. And I think you look today and there's some entrants that small companies that view themselves as digital, right? They might be hair salons, but they describe themselves as digital. And I think they are going to disrupt sort of markets and how you communicate with buyers just the same way as this other small company did. And I think it's just starting. It is fun. I think it would be a great time to be, a newcomer into the marketing field, because I think it's just going to explode.
Yeah. And just to kind of piggyback on that, I agree that Ashish, with your thoughts, right? It's going to become more embedded and more prevalent and more the normal way of doing things. But I do think, we were joking about, but I do think it will. Well, let's think of it as an opportunity. It will provide marketers and give marketers an opportunity to show that they're being more. What's the word? Careful with how money is spent, right? Because because going back to that old adage, hopefully we get to a point where we always know exactly what every marketing dollar does, right? And it's not a panacea that we have to aim for. And I think AI can be a big way that allows us to get there through all the tools and techniques and products and platforms that we talked about. Great conversation. I think we're almost out of time. Per, Ashish, any final thoughts before we close out here?
I mean, I will just reiterate my excitement.
I put you guys on the spot. No, that's fine.
No, I was gonna. Can you hear me? I was gonna say, look, one thing that has always fascinated me about marketing, and just even my journey in marketing, I've always come at marketing from the data and digital and analytics side of things, because I happen to be one of those just persons. I consider myself a business operator, but I just come at things from the angle of a performance marketing. And marketing just is about to become even more exciting. I mean, it is such a broad interdisciplinary function where CMOs are expected to be expert storytellers on one hand, and then now, just when they were getting used to understanding digital, basic nuances of digital, now it's kind of AI is being thrown into the mix, which means you have to be senior marketing leaders, have to be excellent storytellers, capability builders, and so I think this marketing is going to become even more exciting, and which ultimately goes to just more value for the business and more exciting, relevant, and fun experiences, loyalty enriching experiences for consumers. So I think we're looking at some exciting next 5-10 years, and COVID was a huge accelerant towards that.
Yeah, agreed. Great final thoughts. Appreciate. Hey, thank you to my fellow panelists, Per and Ashish. Appreciate the opportunity to participate in this panel with you. And to the audience, have a great rest of the day and couple of days. Hope you guys are getting out of this what you came to get. Thank you very much.
Devashish, thanks to you for moderating.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Yes. Thank you so much to all of our panelists, and a special thank you to Devashish for moderating. This has been an awesome conversation, and I know the audience is giving you a big virtual round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you sharing these incredible insights with us. For the audience, it's time for you to make your way to your next session. Along the way, make sure you accept your connection request and check out our amazing AI exhibits. Thanks so much, and we'll see you around.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.